let's get into the second segment, which is going to be the weekly recap. For this segment, I just like to take you guys on a tour of what's going on around the world in women's football. Of course, I don't get to everything because there's probably a ton of news that I'm missing, but nevertheless, I try to cover it all here just to get you guys brought up to speed. So let's get into it. The U.S. Women's National Team roster for the She Believes Cup came out on Monday, February 1st. Vlatko Andonovski woke up bright and early and got the roster out. I'm sure he had a long night previously, but hey, he's got a lot of talent to pick from. So a ton of people don't envy his position, but also envy his position at the same time. It's very, very interesting. There's a lot to unpack there, so I'll get to that into our main topics. But other news going on around the world, the transfer carousel keeps going up, down, and around. Starting with Chloe Lagarzo of formerly Bristol City, she has gone on a transfer from Bristol City to a new franchise in the NWSL, which is Kansas City. Which I'm really excited for FC Kansas City to get started because it sounds like they're going to have a dynamic team for their first inaugural season, and I can't wait to see how it goes down. But that's not all. Ruby Mace has joined Birmingham City from Arsenal. I believe it was on a dual contract, quote unquote. I'm using air quotes for those of you who are listening on audio. It makes it really interesting because I didn't know a dual contract was like a thing, and I'm not sure of the specifics of that. So I encourage you all to do some research on that and learn about it at your leisure. But sticking with the transfer carousel and the WSL, Roosevelt scored her first WSL goal for Manchester City at the weekend. The defender for West Ham ended up losing her footing. Roosevelt took advantage and put it into the back of the net. Some of you might be wondering, wait a minute, didn't she already score a goal for Manchester City? You're right, she did, but it was not in WSL competition. So something to keep in mind as well. I forgot to mention on the Sunday episode. In other news, shifting back over to the Americas with the NWSL, the NWSL has released their preseason rosters. And for those of you who don't really know what the NWSL preseason consists of, think of it as like, oh, what's a good way to put it? Training camp for the NFL, pretty much. They don't really play any games. I think it's just a way for coaches to kind of see what they're working with for the upcoming season, see who they're going to keep, who they're going to cut. For players like Becky Sarburn and Crystal Dunn, it's basically just to get them ready for the season. So coaches like Mark Parsons can get them ready, get formation started, see who's going to be in his starting 11, and then also see what other players he might want to keep or cut going forward. So that's pretty much what that is all about. One notable name that's been chattering on Twitter is that Crystal Thomas isn't on any of the NWSL rosters. There are murmurs out there in the Twitter sphere, which we do have an account on, by the way, if you're curious, give us a follow. But there's murmurs going on that Crystal Thomas might be making a move overseas. I've heard the name Celtic thrown around. Not really sure what that situation looks like, but that's also something to keep your eye out on. She was the striker out of Washington Spirit, and I believe she's also on the re-entry wire. For those of you who don't know what the re-entry wire is, that's basically like the waiver wire in all other American sports leagues. So something to keep in mind going forward as the NWSL season gets a little closer. Speaking of the NWSL, John Halloran of the Equalizer via Twitter put out some news the other day that more investors are going to be getting involved into the league. That's right. Specifically in this case, the Chicago Red Stars, two really well known Chicagoland investors, will be making an investment into the Chicago Red Stars. He didn't put out names because I don't know if he really actually knows who they are yet, but it's going to be interesting to see who those big names are because Naomi Osaka just last week announced that she is going to be a part owner of the North Carolina Courage going forward, which with Angel City coming into the league and also Naomi Osaka investing, we're seeing more big name investors getting into the league and growing it and then giving it more money, the ability to pay players more. It's really exciting. It's a trend in the right direction, and that just seems to be gaining momentum with each passing day. So I'm really keen on seeing who these two new investors are. That's something to keep in mind. One more bit of news for the weekly recap. Today, actually, just a few hours ago, the Continental Tires League Cup semifinal took place. There were two matches going on, of course. First of which was Chelsea and West Ham United. Chelsea bested West Ham's by a scoreline of 6-0. Pernille Harder had a brace, and Chelsea routed yet another team. They have won, I believe, 8 of their last 8. So Chelsea have just been going wild lately. And I'm not really too surprised. I had Chelsea winning this game by a pretty large margin. West Ham is not the better of the two teams by any stretch, and Chelsea have just been beating everybody. And whether it's top teams, whether it's bottom teams, they've been bossing it all. So no surprises there. But on the other side of that coin, we had, of course, our women's footballers of the week, Bristol City, facing off against Leicester City. And I have been eating my words because I predicted on a previous episode that Leicester City would best Bristol City and move on to the final, but I was wrong. Bristol City's Kiera Skeels ended up scoring a goal in like the last 30 minutes of the match. Not really sure exactly which minute because I was at work. I was only checking updates as time was going on, but nevertheless, Bristol City bested Leicester by a scoreline of 1-0 and are advancing into the Continental Tires League Cup, making it 2 wins in a row for Bristol City, and I hope they keep riding that wave and get out of the relegation zone of the WSL because we all love a good comeback story. So that makes for a Bristol City and Chelsea final for the Continental Tires League Cup. I've got Chelsea winning that one pretty handily. I'm going to be, this might be a little insane, but it's not out of the realm of possibility that Chelsea will probably win this one by a scoreline of 7-0 just because of the way things have been going in the league. But time will tell. We'll see how it goes. I believe the final for the Continental Tires League Cup is going to be taking place next week, but don't quote me on that. I will give that update in Sunday's episode. So, guys, that does it for the weekly recap and segment 3. What are some news lines that I might have missed? Feel free to jump down in the comments below and let me know. But let's move into the last segment.